going on out there, Junkie Nation? It's your boy Kenshiro. We're back with the 167th episode of Culture Junkies Live. Today is all about action movies and all the really cool things that we've seen over the years, the evolution, starting from Bruce Lee, all the way down to Keanu Reeves. We're going to talk about the journey that we've had. We're going to talk about some of our favorites, our good, bad, and ugly, what constitutes an action film, all of that really good stuff. So happy to that you're joining us today. Let me introduce who's going to be on the show with me today, all the way down from Florida in her snazzy looking room with a gift from Michigan or the Motor City Comic Con. Meow Yin, how are you doing, lady?
Hello, all you happy people. I'm doing great. I'm just fine.
Just fine. All right. Cool. Nice Reservoir Dogs shirt, by the way.
It is one of my favorite movies.
It is. You saw him briefly on the screen there. The great Dadakuji, how you doing today, sir?
I'm okay. I'm sorry. I was just reading because I keep forgetting how to hook this gosh darn thing up to my Nintendo Switch. And
okay.
Just reading.
All right. Cool.
So I was really close to the screen. Trying to make sure it gets in there.
While you're getting close to the screen, you might want to, tweeze some of those nose hairs. You all right?
I pull them out all the time, buddy.
All right.
Boink.
I think I saw a few. Anyway, LGZ is also on the show. What's up, lady? Ooh. Did she mute herself?
Looks like she's muted and frozen. All I got is a big smile.
Oh, that's
oh no!
But trust me, she's there. She is there. She's gonna get over her technical difficulties at some point. Mr. GQ is in the building with his immaculate collection of Dragon Ball Z manga figures. How you doing, brother?
Doing better than everybody else, so that's always a plus.
Of course.
So I'm doing good, man.
Of course, that's good.
I'm going to talk about something that I'm big time expert in, so this will be fun.
Right. Yes. We want to say hello to Mr. Nicholas Autry, who's rejoining the show the first time in a long time. Good to see you, brother. And want to say hello to Johnny P over on YouTube. He's also checking in the show over there. So first things first, there's a lot of news that's happening in the world today. I'd be remiss if I didn't announce that, obviously E3 is next week, but tomorrow Google's unveiling their Stadia platform, which is supposed to probably revolutionize gaming. I don't know. But I'm looking forward to, seeing what they have to offer. So make sure you don't miss it. I think it's supposed to come on at noon or something like that. So make sure you go and check that out. Anybody else interested in seeing Stadia and what it's all about?
I might check it out just because I'm curious. Always looking forward to how game technology is changing, even if I might not purchase it. So.
All right. LGZ is back. How are you?
Hi.
Have bad connection there for a minute, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Something just went really crazy right now, but I'm back. Hey everyone.
Hey, that's awesome. Fallen Marvel is going to be joining the show at some point eventually. Kurtrell Austin, thank you for liking the stream over there on Facebook. We appreciate you, sir. Hope you have a fun time talking about action movies with us today. Are you interested in the Stadia, LGZ, or?
No, I'm good.
No, you good?
I'm good. My son is interested, but that's my son. But yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, they can keep it.
They're gonna have to pull some big time magic because for whatever reason it just smells like Ouya. I don't know. Like it has nothing to do with the Ouya. The Ouya was kind of like the starting for like set top box. What you call it? Because if you get the NVIDIA Shield, people tell me the NVIDIA Shield is amazing. Not only is it a 4K whatever streaming and doing games, you can stream games directly from your computer. You can also do that streaming things from their server, but then you can also play all the Google games that are on the Google Play Store. You can put emulators on there, and they say it runs the emulators like Dreamcast emulators, like great. For example, the Nintendo Switch and the NVIDIA Shield, the new NVIDIA Shield, run the same chipset. So, and the only difference is that the NVIDIA Shield is running it at a faster clock speed, They, for the battery power and all that stuff, they kind of neutered the Switch one on purpose, mainly because, you don't want to burn through your battery so fast. But the NVIDIA Shield, they say, is what the Ouya was trying to be, I guess. But the whole Stadia thing, I mean, I think there are gamers out there that don't give a shit. They play stuff, they download the stuff, they don't care about, owning it. They just want to play the games, and, they probably will pay cheaper to continue to play games, because if they are charging $60 for you to stream a fucking game, I'm definitely not doing it. Definitely not doing it. But if it's something like, oh, okay, it's a monthly thing, $5 a month, and you play anything the hell you want, maybe.
Okay. So Johnny P kind of hit me to some news over there in the chat from YouTube, and I wanted to go and quickly check it out. So apparently the video game slump that's hit this year has really hurt retail chain, our favorite retail chain, GameStop. And apparently it's hurting really, really bad. They feel like it's so bad it might not even recover from this. So would anybody be sad to see GameStop go under?
Sad. Being the fact that out of all, I won't say that, but I prefer buying games as cheap as possible when I can become used games. I don't really shop at GameStop, but every once in a while I might go in there and find something I'm looking for. But it's always the current gen systems and a little bit of the last generation. Like right now, you can go in there and find some Wii games, some Wii U games, and if I'm missing the ones I want and they have it for a decent price, I'll get them. Even though I've seen some Wii games that are still going for $40 at GameStop, and I'm like, all right, I get it's Kirby, so it's friggin' the Wii. And I don't know, but if they were to go away, that would. I don't see where anybody else would fill in those holes, because like local game stores do everything, and GameStop doesn't really try to do everything anymore. I think they should continue to have done that and keep as much games and get rid of some of that collectible stuff, get rid of some of that t-shirt stuff, get rid of all that other knick-knack stuff that some people, I mean, if it sells and is making the money, that's good. Me personally, it should be about the games. Like if you remember Funko Land back in the day, you didn't walk into Funko Land and buy a t-shirt. You walked in there and it was just video games. Granted, it was a 16-bit.
Video games.
Yeah, wall-to-wall. You can get 8-bit, 16-bit. When the 32-bit started coming out, they still had 8-bit stuff,
and
as well as the new stuff.
And that wasn't paying the bills. That's why GameStop acquired them.
Well, apparently it wasn't paying the bills because either A, they weren't doing stuff right, or B,
all of the above.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Look, man, you know the big thing about games.
I'm actually one of those folks that do not go to I don't go to GameStop to buy games. I actually buy other stuff at GameStop, like T-shirts and all the stuff Danny and the same, or Great Data Cookie is saying, like, to get rid of. So I'm just kind of like, because one, the GameStops near me don't really have anything interesting for a reasonable price. It's all inflated prices. So it's just like, it kind of sucks, honestly. So I'm not going to say I wouldn't be a little sad, but it's not what it used to be. So it's like,
well, yeah. And I think it speaks to a larger narrative that gaming itself is kind of evolving, and in a way, kind of GameStop has only themselves to blame with a lot of their predatory practices. They're very, shall we say, thrifty return or credit return policy type deal. I mean,
I look at it this way, though. If somebody's dumb enough to bring a game back that they just spent $60 on and accept $10, $15, or $20 for it,
right?
Screw them. That's their stupidity. That's why I never trade games in. I buy stuff to keep stuff. So for me, GameStop does exactly what they're supposed to do. They provide a market for parents that want to spend a little bit less on particular things. And they provide a place where kids that run through their games as fast as possible and not really think about the value of what their parents just spent and the amount of money that their parents spent for a particular thing. And they take advantage of that. And more power to them for doing that. If people are going to be dumb enough to accept low amounts on trade-ins, screw them. That's their fault. And as far as them diversifying going into collectibles, that's one of the best things that they've done because they've given themselves another avenue for revenue. You can't live specifically on just games alone because most gamers by nature are thrifty. They don't want to spend a lot of money on games. They don't want to spend a lot of money on much of anything, to be honest. Most people are like that. So, and that's why their business works the way it works. There is no way in hell I'm going to pay $600 for a PS3 and then turn it over to somebody for $150. This is not going to happen. I don't care how old the system is or anything. There's no like little promotion or anything that's ever going to get me to trade a system in. There's nothing that's going to get me to trade a game in. So part of their business speaks to me. And it's really just like, for example, the only time I bought a used game was, like Dido said, was for the old Wii U stuff. I never buy used games. I don't trust people to keep their systems clean. So why would I ever play a used game? Unless it's for a system that you just can't get anything new for. Other than that, I get everything new. I honestly have no use for their used section for the most part when it comes down to their collectibles all day, every day, because you can do it in a sense on a almost layaway style of purchase. You can go in and if something's coming out that you know you want, put $20 down on it. And by the time it comes out, you paid it off in like, little small increments and you got it. So they have a place in the market. It's just, maybe their marketing sucks. Maybe their long going reputation of not giving people fair trades has caught up to them. But there are alternatives. There's places like Disc Replay. There's not a ton of independent game stores in Michigan, but in other states there are. Yeah. So there's always going to be somebody that's going to replace any business that goes out.
That's true. I'm pretty sure a better store will kind of come along and fill that void, and maybe a better retail store, or because I just don't foresee gaming retail stores going completely out of business, going away. I don't know. I just don't see it. To me, that's just me. Maybe I'm crazy.
Well, anyway, again, everybody thinks that physical is going to disappear, and it's not going to happen.
Right.
That's the whole thing, though. I mean, if you look at the way gaming is going, console gamers, from my understanding, a lot of them, even though I've heard I think it's in minority, will download games, but for the most part, console gamers are buying physical copies. People who are PC gamers are more prone to
download.
Not. Yeah, they're going to download it because you got fast connections. You're not waiting as long as you are on the console for whatever strange reason. Like the games are about the same size, but you're not, well, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't downloaded any 20 gig games on Steam or nothing because, even though my computer is more powerful than my PlayStation 4 and my Xbox, for whatever reason, it feels weird to download a top tier AAA game and not have a physical copy. I'm okay downloading, old stuff. I'm okay downloading things that are $10 and less. I'm okay downloading 2D stuff. But when it's like top tier AAA type game, I want some physical. If I'm gonna pay $60, I want physical. But there are people out there that don't care, and I think the PC gaming market, because I think that's what's gonna push it. Because Google primarily does stuff for PCs. If they do a standalone system that you hook up to your television, which I doubt that they do, I think it's going to be a service through a PC. They're probably going to incorporate it directly in a television somehow, where you buy the controller maybe and you go forth. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Like Chromecast or something? Don't they have like Chromecast or something like that?
It might be something through like that, because they're talking about this supposed to be, the latency on it is supposed to be damn near zero. So if it is what I have supposedly heard it was when they first announced it, it's not going to be the same in the traditional sense. The way I remember hearing about it is like you would be able to do this through your phones. You'd be able to do it through your PCs. You'd be able to do it through your what have you, and play these AAA games that there are a market out there for. And the crappy part is that as much as I don't want to, cloud gaming is going to be the newest thing, because we all know that these video game companies don't like you reselling their stuff, because in America and maybe the rest of the world, I know Japan, somehow they get a cut. I don't really know how that goes, but in North America, South America, everywhere else, you buy a game, You exchange your money, and now it belongs to you. And if you want to sell said game, that company does not get anything else from it. And they don't like that because the reselling market is something that's huge. It is something that's going on. I mean, in order to stop reselling market, the game companies should continuously make all the games. You should be able to go to Nintendo and say, you know what, I want a brand new copy of Super Mario Brothers, and they ship one to you. You bought it from them. If they don't want you to go used, because they at least get a cut from it. But because these companies stop making these stuff, they're never going to get a cut. And cloud gaming, they will always get their cut, and you can't sell it.
Right.
And that's the same thing with digital stuff. They get their cut, you can't sell it.
Yeah, but the problem with digital is they've taken out all of their manufacturing costs and they're still charging full price for it.
And I agree. I don't like that at all. If it was digital, like I said, if it was a digital game and it was like $30 for a AAA game, digital, I probably wouldn't have too much of a problem doing that. But like as it is right now, like I like the Nintendo Switch a bunch. I just don't see it as, outside of Nintendo stuff, I don't see it as a AAA system for me. Like if I'm they've been putting like Doom and Mortal Kombat and actually having functional versions of certain games on there, but outside of Nintendo's properties, which most of them are AAA games, I'm not downloading a AAA game on it. Like I just downloaded some games. This game that I really wanted for the Dreamcast called Gunlord X. And if anybody out there has ever heard of Turrican or Super Turrican or Mega Turrican, came out in the 16-bit era. It came out like the Amiga back in the day, the Genesis, Super Nintendo, blah, blah, blah. Somebody decided to make a game that is a spiritual successor, plays like it, looks like it, feels like it. But it came out for the freaking Neo Geo AES back in the day. I mean, not back in the day. It came out, the company that made it came out for the Neo Geo AES and the Sega Dreamcast. The AES is out of the question because I don't have one, and I'm not paying $500 for a video game. It's just not happening. And then the Dreamcast one, had I caught it early, I could have got it for a decent price. But because I didn't know about it early, I didn't get it early. And it's like $180 used on eBay, or maybe brand new on eBay if I want to get the Dreamcast one. But they released it on the Switch recently for $10. I'm like, okay. And if they come out with a physical copy, like Limited Run has been doing, it might be $30. And I say, you know what? I might get it for $30. But that's just me. And I'm probably not the majority of gamers anymore. I in my circle of friends, as far as I know, everybody likes physical. My cousin, I was talking to him, and he has a PlayStation 4, and he doesn't care about downloading games on the because he says, I don't have to go out to the store anymore. I don't have any clutter. I don't have it, doing anything. I don't have to worry about anything breaking, and I still get to play the game. I just can't spend $60 on something like that.
Right, and
you got to know how to invest in it, though, man.
Right. Paula Marvel's on the show. How you doing, man?
Yo, what's up, everybody? Fashionably late as usual. So,
right.
Hey,
that
I'm
Final Fantasy shirt you wearing?
Yes. Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Sweet. So, hey, one of the topics that actually dropped today is kind of the Rotten Tomato score for Dark Phoenix, and it's not looking so hot.
Really?
Some reviewers are saying it's the worst X-Men film ever. So the question I wanted to ask all of you.
But wait a minute, it hasn't even come out. How have they seen it? It's not even out yet.
The reviewers. It's the critics. It's the critics are saying this. Okay, so obviously, we're taking this with a grain of salt because we know how critics are. But and I'm not saying all critics are bad, and not all critics are good. But the kind of the gist of it is that they're saying this thing is going out with a whimper instead of a bang. So since the series is ending and it's might not measure up to what we're expecting, how long do you think Disney's going to wait till they reboot the X-Men, or how long should they wait to reboot the X-Men?
2 years.
I say one.
Get the taste out of their mouth real fast.
However long it takes them to make a good quality movie with a really good storm.
This is what I think they should do. At this point, I think they should just wait to do X-Men and probably do something like offshoot, like Alpha Flight in the meantime, and just slide X-Men in there through that. just to do something different and the widen the scope even further, which they've already done. I think that's a good way to go through. Just kind of just use Alpha Flight to segue into X-Men. At least that's what I think.
I like that idea, and I say I want X-Men to come in like. I want them to be introduced in another movie. Like, open the door slowly. Like, just how you had Black Panther just fucking show up in Civil War, do something like that to make it be like to draw people in, because that will definitely get the bad taste out of somebody's mouth. Not saying, hey, this is this X-Men movie, have some other thing going on, and boom, some X-Men show up for some whatever reason, and that's how you pull the people in and say, maybe I want to see some more of this. Granted, some people are just gonna watch it because like me, like just because, but I think at this point we need something to wow us, and they have the capacity to do that. So
okay.
Also, I want a Storm movie, a good quality Storm.
So you just want a Storm movie, just Storm by herself, huh?
Hey, they could do a Aurora movie if they wanted
There's
to.
a lot.
But who's gonna play her though? Who's gonna play her? I don't necessarily
Somebody
like the new
good,
girl.
obviously.
I don't necessarily like the new girl, and Halle Berry's done.
No, and we can put them on the wall. Like how I have this picture here. We put Halle Berry and Alexandra Shipp.
Mm-hmm.
We put them on the wall and we say, not this. And then we go from there and make a good
not
decision.
this, huh?
Yes.
Okay, not this. All right. Anybody else got an opinion on how long Disney should wait?
Wait for what?
Till the X-Men, till they should reboot the X-Men.
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yep.
Why is that?
Sort out everything that you have. You can bring in a couple of characters here and there, but I would not go with a full-on team movie quite yet.
That's
okay.
Don't rush in like DC does. Only fools go in blind.
Only fools rush in, eh?
Yep.
No, I think Tony Young had a pretty good idea. Like, what if they actually did like a movie that was like that dived into like the Weapon X program and just do like a sort of like a Weapon X film and kind of just make that kind of be like the starting point leading into the whole mutant phenomenon or whatever. I think that would be like a decent way too, us outside from, using another established team like Alpha Flight. But I think that'd be a good idea too. Just be like, it starts off strictly with Weapon X, and it kind of starts to sort of, it's like, oh, they've been researching the X gene and this, that, and the other, and then they have like, whoever the original X team was, Weapon X team was, or whatever, and just kind of do something like that. But once again, probably wait maybe about 2 or 3 years, like GQ said. But definitely, either one of those would be a good way to start it off, I think.
Okay, not bad. So a lot of people have opinions in the chat. I need to run back and read up on some of them. Tony Young says it's not a bad idea with your Weapon X take. He said, plus you can use the Weapon Plus program, tie it to Cap. I guess. Let's see. Big Kahuna's in the chat. We didn't mention him on the show.
What's up, bro?
What's up, man? Good to see you in the chat. Maurice Baker says all he wants for Christmas is a dark-skinned Storm. Sure.
Honey, me too.
I think a lot of people do.
I want a comic accurate Storm based on the Jim Lee design.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I want.
There you go. I want
a comic accurate one. Yeah. Based on the Jim Lee design. Very, very specific. Okay.
That means the same thing to me, though. But go ahead.
Well, not really. Jim Lee's design was caramel skinned.
Potato.
No,
it's
she was caramel skinned with blue eyes and super duper white hair, not even remotely silver. Her hair was pure white. Her eyes were blue. Her skin was caramel colored. She was about 5'11". At least a double D
breaking
cup.
down the stats, like.
So,
Oh my God.
You thoroughly researched this, my friend.
What was her 3 sizes, man? What was her 3 sizes? I know you got them too.
She was based on kind of the perfect 36, 24, 36, but she was at least a double D.
See, there you go.
But the thing is, the idea of Storm is she's supposed to look like a model. She's supposed to be beyond gorgeous. She's supposed to be tall. She's supposed to be super duper exotic, and they've never done that.
That I'll grant you. They've never done
right.
that. They've never done that. Where she was super duper exotic. Never done that. And there's plenty of.
Go ahead. No.
What?
The whole exotic thing.
What?
Oh boy.
Argued back in the day, and this is a whole nother conversation that I'm not going to get into right now. But that's why they chose Halle Berry. So go on, continue.
Man, please, no. They chose her because she was popular. That's all.
When you hear exotic,
what?
Usually when you hear exotic, it's like more rooted in anti-blackness than anything else.
Thank you.
So I don't like that. So exotic is not. That's a weird word because, to be honest,
how is that a weird word? I'm just saying because Storm. When they say exotic, it sounds anti-black. It screams anti-black.
I mean, it depends
when I say exotic, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't care about they. I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about she is an African with blue eyes. That's an exotic look because that's something you do not normally see. So that's why I want that design. I don't care about what they say.
And what we got was Halle Berry.
Because she was a name.
Exactly. Halle Berry.
Exactly.
Well, no, and because at that time she was considered the exotic type of black woman. So let's not act like
By
that's
who?
not.
I mean,
by
maybe
mainstream America.
maybe personally, but I was only like 15 when that movie came out, so I don't have a dog in that fight in that conversation.
But that's the thing.
So,
The idea of exotic. It means a certain thing to in society in America. That is.
We get it.
But I could take it or leave it with society, and I don't really care about what they think. I'm talking about what I'm saying.
Yeah, we get that part, and nobody's denying your example in that, but that is going back to what has actually come on screen. What's come on screen is society's example of exotic, and it's failed twice.
Yeah, because they picked two people that should not have been that character because they're both short.
I mean, they were terrible.
It's really interesting. I love seeing this back and forth is really interesting. I have to admit.
I'm gonna go watch X-Men probably tomorrow night.
Why are you gonna do that to yourself? Oh wait, Dark Phoenix? Is that what you mean? Dark Phoenix?
You talking about Dark Phoenix or the original X-Men movie?
I thought you were saying the original X-Men.
Dark Phoenix tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
That installment of X-Men.
Why are you going to subject yourself to that? Because you know it's going to be bad.
It doesn't matter. I just need to see how they're going to end it. And I don't dislike everybody in the film. Like, I still have some type of feeling about Mystique because what they have put as Mystique and what Mystique actually is two different things. But
she's going to die anyway.
Watch the movie. And I hope it's a satisfying death. But
right.
I'm gonna watch the movie because that's what I do. I watch the movies. I watch the comic book movies, and I'm actually interested to see Sophie Turner's Dark Phoenix. I want to see how they pull it out. I
liked her as Jean Grey. I wish she'd gotten more of a chance to really.
Exactly. I enjoy her character as Jean Grey. So I'm just like, all right, so how is this going to go? How is it going to go? So
Who are you talking about?
Sophie Turner.
Sophie Turner.
Sansa's bitch ass.
Oh, here we go again.
I mean, it's you know what? Never mind.
But yeah,
fandom's clashing right now.
Right.
Actually, really funny reaction.
Wait.
Sophie Turner is. Huh?
Did Tony Young really say Serena Williams or bust?
He did say that. He did say Serena Williams or bust.
Serena's beautiful, but I don't know about her acting chops as Storm.
No, she ain't Storm, man.
Yeah.
She's not Storm in any of the things that I mentioned.
Right.
At all.
No.
Now if they wanted to go if they wanted to cast Nubia, then I mean Warner Brothers would pick that up if they were smart.
Now,
however,
that would be somewhat accurate.
Serena ain't an actress. I love Serena Williams, but she's not an actress. She has never tried to be. So,
and I hope they don't try to.
There's tons of people who are actively trying to be actresses who can do both of those roles. So,
hey, would y'all be mad? Like, would y'all be mad if they casted? Because you know how cosplayers can make themselves pretty much transform themselves looking like the character. Y'all be mad if they cast a cosplayer one day as like one of these in one of these roles?
Why would I be mad? Like if they can act, no.
I mean, unless they hired him as a costume designer, then like I'm all for it. But I mean, we won't know what their acting ability is from a can of paint until we actually see it. So. Right. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd be mad because a lot of times when they do cast someone new, it's kind of like, okay, let's see what this person has, as opposed to, you know, other people who has a well-known resume. You know, we're eyeballing them from like, you know, sun up to sundown because we're trying to figure out, okay, what are they going to bring to this character that we have. You know, whatever, like a certain someone that officially got cast as a certain character this past week. But other than that, you know, it's I wouldn't mind. I mean, we just have to wait and see what happens. But you know, we have to put our trust in the casting directors.
We've done that before, and look where it got us. Hello, Warner Brothers.
But we're talking about this is going to be an MCU movie, and so far they haven't really cast anybody who was like off. So
yeah,
I think that they'll be fine with that.
I'm sure to break that cycle. I'm sure some people are upset that Lupita got cast as Nakia before she had a chance to be Storm. I'm sure some people would love to have seen her be Storm.
But I mean, that was before they even knew that they had or were going to do this whole or was going to have control back over the X-Men. So,
right.
I mean, it is what it is.
That's
Lupita wouldn't.
And she doesn't. She doesn't have to be Storm. I like her as Nikita. There can be somebody else as Storm.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was saying that when we saw.
I
mean, everybody was saying that when we saw Queen Mother Ramona in the trailer. So it's kind of like, damn it. It's like, okay, we know it was 20 years ago.
20 years too late.
But they didn't. But
right.
Yeah.
20 years too late.
It was like, okay, this is the closest we're going to get to.
And I would have been fine with that.
It was like, at this point, that's going to be like the closest accurate representation of Storm we're going to get for
ever.
Now.
Right. We'll have to see. We'll
so, I mean, to see, like, yeah. I mean, I trust in Marvel Studios casting directors. Yeah. So it's like, I can't wait to see what they do with it, but
yeah.
But then again, I can't wait.
Them too. They haven't really let us know.
Tony Young, he said Hugh Jackman is a singer.
That was in reply to Nicholas Autry saying Serena Williams is a tennis player, and I'm like, well, you can't pigeonhole people because there's many people.
It was a reference to Bryan Singer because I mean Hugh Jackman was a good casting move,
right? And
so was Dr. Xavier. And so was Magneto. So they didn't get everything wrong in X-Men.
Oh no, not at all.
No,
if anything, those are the one few things they praise.
With Fox, with Fox, I don't think it was necessarily that the casting director did a bad job. It was the scriptwriters that did a bad job.
I agree with that.
Okay. All right, so we're still gonna go see X-Men or Dark Phoenix when it comes out this week. I got a lot of movies to catch up on. I still haven't seen Godzilla. I want to see that. I still haven't seen. I was gonna take my kids to see Detective Pikachu. I haven't seen that. And there was one other movie that came out that I wanted to see that I haven't seen yet. Oh, I wanted to see Ma. And did anybody see Ma this past weekend when it came out? Fallen Marvel. I know that ain't your bag, so you probably want to.
That's anyway. Not really a theater movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I was going to wait as well.
Okay. I know Miao Yin was talking about it, and she kind of was interested in it. But did you see it?
I know I didn't. Actually, it was spoiled for me because, which it was, on YouTube you have autoplay sometimes. So sometimes I'll put my YouTube on and I'll walk away. I'll just listen to whoever I have, and yeah, so it auto played and they would talk. I was like, this sounds interesting but weird. And then I went back and I'm like, they're like literally telling the whole movie. So, and they did tell the whole movie. So, I'm gonna still watch it, but it's just kind of like, meh.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, cool. So we're gonna move on to the main topic, and obviously, Yao Yin put this topic together. This is kind of her baby, firstborn, whatever, however you want to put it. So anyway, we're talking action movies this week, and kind of after with John Wick coming out and how popular that was, and the announcement of the fourth film, she kind of wanted to put together a topic based around the action movie. So we'll talk about the evolution of the action movie. And it's changed over the years. I think a lot of times people want to pigeonhole certain things as action movies that don't quite fit the description of an action movie, or some action movies are usually, crossing over into a couple of different genres. So what would we say defines an action movie? What makes an action? I mean, what makes a movie an action movie? I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to describe it. So I want to give everybody one chance to say, their one thing about what makes an action movie an action movie. So, LGZ, let's start with you. What makes an action movie an action?
All right. So for me, when I think of action movie, I'm thinking of a movie that has continuous action in it. So when we think about John Wick 3, if, for most of the people that's seen it, it's literally packed like 70, maybe 80 to 85% of just pure action scenes throughout the whole movie. That to me is considered an action movie. The movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where they were in the jungle, you know what I'm saying? That is like an action movie because that was packed.
Wait. You don't know the name of this movie? Wait a minute, stop. Wait, stop.
I forgot it.
You forgot it?
I thought it, but I forgot the name of it. But I'm just saying.
Oh, wait, stop. Do we need to kick her off the show, everybody? Let's put this to a vote. Because how you gonna forget that movie?
To kick her off the show. What the hell?
I mean, come on.
For you that just saw the Fifth Element, I know your ass ain't talking about
hey, but at least I don't forget the legendary
movie.
Come on now.
You left yourself open for that one.
No, I did on purpose. I knew she was gonna take it, but still, how you gonna forget Predator?
I'm sorry, I forgot the name. It's like the movie's like what, 30 years old? I forgot. Sorry.
That's not even an excuse, L. Not one bit.
Wait a minute. I'm telling you the movie. I know who's in it. I just forgot the name.
And so, I mean, dog.
You described it. Come on. Everybody has their moments. Come on. Leave alone.
I'm just saying, back to what I was saying, action-packed movies. That's like the one thing that, like, there has to be continuous action. When it starts getting like too drama-y or too many talking scenes, I kind of take it out of the action genre, even though it's labeled action. But I personally take it out of the action genre and put it somewhere else in my mind because it's not action. It's more of a action dramedy or a drama or something. I don't know. But I mean, for me, at least 75% action scenes throughout the whole movie.
All right, so an action film's got to have a certain ratio of action scenes in order to define an action movie for you. Okay, great. So let's go to Fallen Marvel. What's your definition of an action movie if it doesn't fit that criteria that LGZ put out there?
The way I look at an action movie in, I guess, its truest form, to me, like it has to have what I would think of as aesthetic style. Typically, with action movies, aesthetics comes first in the style, the way you do it, because action movies has a certain style about them that brings out the action genre that it's, that's what kind of brings it out. It's kind of different when you have something that's more focused on story, because you'll have like a movie like I say The Negotiator, which is more so story than action, but it's still considered an action movie.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if you obviously going for something that's pure action, then that's when you have to go to the aesthetic part and just kind of like find what style you want to go with, and you focus on the aesthetic part, like the style, like how you're gonna have your fights, how you're gonna do your chase scenes, how you're gonna do your gun fights, and things like that. So for the most part, when it comes to action movies, it's like it has to be aesthetically pleasing for its style.
And when we're talking aesthetics, you're talking like explosions, fight choreography.
Not really so much explosions, because the thing is, like, any movie can have an explosion in it. Obviously, depends on the volume. But again, like once again, like your how you orchestrate your fight scenes, your gunplay, your chase scenes, you know, and stuff like that. Like it has to, like the style of it has to be there for it to feel like one. Otherwise, it's technically not really a pure action movie.
So we're talking almost like something that follows almost like in a trope type way.
I mean, it's gonna have a trope. I mean, pretty much every single thing is gonna have a trope, but it's like it kind of has to go like in a certain order of how you use those elements. It's like, you know, you have like, you know, your antagonist, like what he's about, your protagonist, what his motivation is, and what brings them together, and you know, the clash and all that, and loved ones getting in trouble. You know, it's all there, but it's like, again, it's like how they do it, like how they orchestrate the style of it. That is what really brings the action out. So it's like, it's kind of the difference between a John Wick and an Art of War. If you guys remember the Wesley Snipes movie Art of War, because Art of War is more of a thriller than an action film.
Right. Okay. And we'll touch on that type later. So so we got a ratio of action films, and we got, you know, the aesthetics of an action film. So let's go to Miao-Yin. Let's get your take. What to you defines what an action movie is outside of these?
So mine is close to what Elle is saying. It's like it's the precedence of action over the storytelling. So as we said in John Wick 3, you know, there, like many people were saying, there is not a lot of that you can spoil, because it's not a lot of story there. You know, there is a story, but the action and what's going on takes more, or comes before the actual storytelling. It's the physical fights, for me, it is like explosions, because, you know, disaster movies are action movies and stuff like that. And all of those elements overtaking the story. So if there is like if it is a lot of storytelling, and that story is the center of the movie than the action, then that's when you get into the other type of genres. But it's a action movie as well that has action. It's that has action. So it's the physical, it's the physical action that takes place on a movie overriding the storytelling. Just that.
Okay, so the physical overrides the storytelling, and you kind of go along with Elle's definition of it.
Yeah, because if you strip the movie of all the action, what is going on in the movie? And for me, action movies, you strip away all of that, and it's just like, oh yeah, this was a real simple situation.
Okay, so in a way, you're defining an action movie as a movie that has a lot of action but has a very pencil thin plot, almost in a way.
A lot of the times. So we can, and I don't want to go on because I want everybody else to have their part. So I'll say more later.
All right. So let's hear from Dido. What's your take? What defines an action movie to you?
Action movies. well, we use that word a lot, so it has to have action in it. For the most part, the plot has to be paper thin because most action movies are paper thin. You know, take John Wick, for example. Plot, you fucked with me, I'm going to fuck you back. And that's basically it. If you look at almost any action movie, it's just, that's basically what it is. Now, some of them could have a little bit more deeper plot to it. Like if you look at The Matrix, Matrix is considered an action movie, and it actually had a story that it was trying to tell, as well as action into it. So for me, it's, you know, the action is a character, if you put it as a story. It's not just the characters are the characters and they're doing what they're supposed to do, but that's part of it. Because if you don't have action in it, they're not doing anything. Movie. Exactly. So, action movies come in a lot of different,
flavors.
Yeah, a lot of different flavors. It's the, 31 flavors of action movies, and it's kind of hard. It's not hard to just say what is an action movie, what is an action movie. It's basically when you walk into a theater and you expect, like they say, fight scenes, chase scenes, gun scenes, very little dialogue. Even though it doesn't mean you don't have to have it, but very little dialogue and a sense of, how many bodies are going to get dropped. Because, and you can't just base the bodies getting dropped, because horror movies are not really considered action movies and bodies get dropped all the time in those things. Right. So it's kind of like a fine balancing act of, those things in it, a lot of just doing things. So for me, you can take an action movie and kind of sprinkle other stuff on top of it. Like, well, Elle would say if it has, too much drama into it, then it's not really an action movie for her. But for me, it can still be an action movie if the action takes precedent over the other stuff. Like, they got action comedies out there. Rush Hour was an action movie. It was a buddy cop movie, but it was also an action movie, and it had comedy in it, and it was sprinkled with comedy. It wasn't a comedy first and then action movie later. It had funny moments in it where you could sit back and laugh, and then, there's still action scenes, Jackie Chan doing his thing, have a couple gun shootouts, you have some chase scenes, if I remember correctly, which I don't really remember correctly because I haven't seen Rush Hours, any of them in a long time. But just that is what I see for action movie. For me, it's something I want to go to the theater for, because the experience, them being loud and being, having explosions and them having all that stuff, to me is something I can't replicate at home. Anything else, really, it doesn't change it. You're watching on your TV screen, you don't need to feel it. And action movies, I think you need to feel, and unless you are a millionaire, billionaire, what have you, and you have those home theaters with the same as those movie theaters, you can't feel it at home. But action movies, you can feel it, the explosions and the gunshots and the bones breaking, if that's in the fight scenes or the punches that's going on. So
like the scenes that make you go, ooh, like, oh,
yeah,
dude,
like wow,
yeah, okay, yeah. All right, I got you. I got you. So, let me ask the movie Auteur, Mr. GQ. What defines an action movie to you?
An action movie is usually a revenge plot, a justice plot, or I need to rescue somebody, or I need to protect other people storyline. And it's usually, as many have already said, high body count, usually gunplay, sword play, hand to hand, and that's pretty much how it goes for the most part for most action films. I disagree as far as the paper thin plot, because if you really break down any movie, every movie could technically have a paper thin plot. Godfather is a movie about an Italian immigrant that came over, started a crime family, and died, and then his son took over the family business. That's basically the plot of The Godfather. So, it's not like you can't break down any movie that you watch in a couple of lines, because the TV Guide used to do it all the time. In all honesty, for me, my favorite types of action movies would probably be martial arts, probably be gunplay in some creative sense. But as far as what defines an action movie, I would think, like I said, just those main plot points. where the hero or protagonist or antagonist, whichever one you want to follow, is either engaged in some type of revenge thing, some type of protection thing, some type of out for justice or whatever, because that's pretty much how the majority of them go.
Right. No, I get that. So the next thing I'm gonna ask you guys is, how has the genre evolved over the years? Hand of Omega actually had a really good point. When he was commenting over on YouTube, he said the modern action film kind of started with James Bond, Ian Fleming's Dr. No, all the way back in the 60s. And that, when you look at it, from the lens of today, it doesn't really stand up to today's action standards. But back then it was kind of almost like a revolutionary thing. A spy thriller, lots of, got chase scenes. You had a guy who's sneaking around and, had a lot of fight scenes and stuff like that. A lot of people would consider westerns action movies from back in the day, and it's certainly evolved from there. So let's keep it with GQ. How do you feel like the genre has evolved over the years since it came out?
You see a lot more actors doing their own stunts, doing their own fight scenes. Shaky cam, thankfully, is starting to go away a little bit more because of the additional training that a lot of actors are undertaking. For example, Nico in the chat mentioned Ong Bak. Ong Bak obviously is Tony Jaa doing his thing. Lots of wide shots for his fight scenes, because those two guys, or however many that's in there, are all martial artists and they can all do the work. So I think that's one of the things that has definitely changed the game, especially from the martial arts side of things. You have people like Scott Adkins, obviously, who is an outstanding martial artist, does all his own actual stuff and does a lot of stuff for a lot of other people too. But and you see like a Michael Jai White, another guy that can obviously do his own thing. Blade with Wesley Snipes. People in there actually doing the actual work versus unnamed stuntman after unnamed stuntman, or face replacement after face replacement, and all those other various things. So I think that's one thing that has definitely raised the bar. Obviously with John Wick, you got a bar raising performance out of Keanu Reeves, and also in John Wick 3, Halle Berry as well, because they both took time to go to the gun range and the tactical gun range and put in the time and put in the work. And that's one thing that you'll never be able to take away from Keanu, is he puts in the work. Even with 47 Ronin, the movie might not have been everybody's cup of tea, but you can't take away from the fact that he did all the necessary training to make it look authentic. So I think that's one thing that has changed, because I think, the audience has changed. The audience wants more of that, don't push in as tight as you can, because the 60, 70, 80-year-old actor that you got playing the main character can't do the work. I want a nice wide shot, and I want to see what's going on. So I think that's one thing that has definitely raised the bar, and we got a lot of Hong Kong action to thank for that, because they've been doing it for years.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think those are really, really good points. You're talking about how people want more of the authenticity of the action films. They don't want easily spottable stuntmen. They want to see the actual stars doing their own stuff. And that kind of makes it stick out to you more. So let's go to Miayin. Let's see how do you think the genre has evolved over the years since way back in the day?
I definitely think it has changed over the years. Like, as you said, like westerns being like used to be considered action movies and stuff, because the first action movie was a train robbery movie, and that was a western. You know what I mean? So we don't have that anymore. We have like a lot of action movies are like crime based and stuff like that. You see it seems every year there is like the female Russian spy movie coming out, which I find is interesting, because you used to have like the James Bond coming out more often, but now we're seeing like the Red, I think it's called Red anyway, and those type of movies. So I think that it's also, you're seeing action from people that you didn't see action before, which I like, because I've grew up watching action movies and movies in general, but I I never thought that I would see a movie, which a lot of people didn't like Proud Mary and stuff like that, but that was an action movie and she was handling weapons and it was this whole thing going on. So you see a lot of, and I know some people are going to cry about it, but it's like you see more diversity in it, which is good, which I appreciate and which I like because it's fun. Anybody, it's, you know, action is for everybody kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, to keep it short and sweet, that's my part on how I think it has evolved over the years. And I think it's a good thing. I would like to see. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but I want to see more American martial arts movies. Mainstream wise, because not saying that we don't have those movies, we do have a lot of them. They're just not in the theaters and stuff like that. They're not like they're more like B and C type movies. And
so
I would like to
essentially
see more
what you're asking for is for Scott Adkins to get starring roles in AAA
Oh boy.
Hollywood films, right? Isn't that kind of what you're trying to say?
No.
That's kind of what you're trying to say, right? I mean, almost
If
like he
that's
should have
what
been
I was
cast
trying
as
to
Batman,
say, I
right?
would have said, hey, maybe Scott Adkins should be the. No, that's not what I'm trying to say.
I mean, that kind of would satisfy the requirements that you're talking about. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, like Michael Jai White would satisfy the requirements.
Michael Jai White would be a good one too.
You know,
Yeah.
You know, William Lee in the start. You know, that is what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about no Scott Adkins.
I think I just came up with a reason why Scott Adkins is where he is, because they kind of tried to Scott Adkins before, and his name was Ray Park, and he was in those movies, and he was
Ray Park was a wet
And
movie,
hey,
man.
look, I'm going to tell you something. I think that's what, because you know how Hollywood is. They'll try something away. He's a British guy. He's a martial artist. They stuck him in stuff. They didn't see him doing what they wanted him to do, and then they stopped doing it. And Scott Adkins, despite him probably being taller, is still exactly the same thing in the same way. So that's probably where Hollywood is going, like, you can make these type of movies, but you can't make these type of movies.
Outside of Phantom Menace and King of Fighters, what have you seen Ray Park in?
Right.
Phantom Menace, King of Fighters. He was in the X-Men movie. I don't remember if you remember that one.
Toad? Man, don't mention that.
I am not
All
the
of
one
which
that's
he
saying,
had
I'm
limited
saying,
dialogue in.
and that's I think that's the whole thing. I'm not saying that he is not capable martial artist. I think they're looking at it that way, like, okay, this guy, we've done it with Ray Park, we're not going to do it again. This is just a guess that I think that people in the positions of Hollywood are doing. That's probably why you'll never see Scott Adkins as Batman, because by the time they recast Batman, Scott Adkins is going to be Mega Sean's favorite, saying he's too old. So,
Well, not unless Tanya Harding gets on the ball and does her job.
Tanya Harding, no. She had her chance.
No, she needs to kneecap Robert Pattinson.
There you go. Yes. There you go.
And then they'll just have a stuntman do his work. So
Right.
I'm not going to.
Well, Scott Adkins is a great stuntman, so you may as well just cast and get the best of both worlds.
Oh my God, get over Scott Adkins.
If they wanted him in the role, they would have
had him a long time ago.
Yeah.
Come on now.
They
Come
would've got
on.
him
Don't
on.
be mean to our boy Scott Adkins. He deserves more pub than he gets. So does Michael Jai White. I think it's a travesty that they aren't pushed to the forefront a lot more. I mean, hell, Jean-Claude Van Damme got a big push back in the day.
Scott Adkins, because Scott Adkins has a whole bunch of B movies out there for people to watch.
Well, here's the thing. The executives haven't had the right caliber gun held to their head yet.
Right.
You're not lying.
Right.
Undisputed too.
So moving, huh?
Yes, which was a straight to video
He was
film.
undefeated 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
What?
Wow. Wow, that laugh was something else,
was in that movie
dude.
too.
That laugh was something else. I ain't gonna lie. Oh boy. Anyway,
Michael Jai White was in part 2. And
yeah, he was.
Got his ass handed to him, actually.
He did.
So I'm just saying.
So anyway, we were talking about, how's the genre evolved over the years. We heard from GQ, we heard from Yayan. Fallen Marvel, we haven't heard from you. How do you think the genre has evolved over the years?
It's definitely had some drastic changes over the last century or so. I mean, basically, they had the Cowboys and Indians run for probably about 50 plus years, probably more. Probably, I would even say 60 years. Besides that, you also had like the mobster films and all that. Whatever, it's either one of those two. Then, when, of course, like the late 70s, 80s came around, we had the big burly guys, your Stallone, your Arnold Schwarzenegger, your Carl Weathers, your Dolph Lundgren. That ran pretty well up until like the early 90s. But one of the things I feel that kind of stuck was the unconventional hero, which is the John McClanes and such of that nature or whatever, because he was essentially an unconventional hero. And crazily enough, that's something that they still use even now, and it hasn't quite run its course yet. You have somebody that's essentially either the underdog or someone who appears unassuming. It's like, hell, even Jackie Chan in most of his like more modern movies, like around like Rumble in the Bronx, more or less, or whatever. Like, yeah, he trained, but he's like, he's always like this like unassuming guy a little bit, like he kind of always plays that up or whatever. Like he's just kind of thrust in these situations and whatever. Now, but I think it's mostly because now we're at that point where it's like, okay, we're at that point where it's like a hero can be anyone. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who survived Desert Storm or Vietnam or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it could be somebody who just had like regular police training, or someone who essentially trained to be a fireman that's able to use set skills in other situations and all of that. And even comic book characters. I mean, again, most of the people that we see comic book heroes or whatever, most of them were just normal people. Like, they became heroes because of something extraordinary happened. Not all of them were trained. So that's one of the things that kind of appeals to people. So it's like the heroes are starting to match the audience a bit, is I think is one of the things I feel that's evolved. Like, people are starting to relate more to the hero, to the action hero, because they damn near see themselves. And same thing can be said with even most modern antagonists for said heroes. A lot of folks see themselves in some of the the villains. Killmonger was right, Thanos was right. Folks are seeing themselves a little bit in some of these characters now. So relatability, I think, is another thing that it's really evolved, because people are seeing themselves in these movies, in these situations, doing some of these stuff. Like, the same with it.
It's kind of ridiculous you even saying that, because we know that the average Joe Blow ain't getting his hands on semi-automatic rifles and blowing.
I mean, of
away,
course,
or is a master of the martial arts.
Joe Blow isn't doing what?
Huh?
The average Joe Blow isn't doing what?
Isn't getting their hands on. You know what? Now that I think about it,
Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, a year ago, maybe two.
All
this stuff is not it's the truth.
It's the truth. Okay, so the average Joe Blow isn't a master assassin like John Wick, or a master of martial arts like
Jackie Chan. But
like Jackie Chan, or
the thing is with John Wick, the thing is with John Wick in itself, it's more so of like a modern throwback, though.
Right.
So it's like that's what makes John Wick essentially special, especially in this day and age, because it's like he does seem like, I mean, Keanu Reeves seems like, obviously, he's like the nicest guy in the world, but you see him playing this character, and it's like he doesn't look too unlike everyone else, but at the same time, he can do all this extraordinary shit, and it's just like, damn, okay. But again, it's kind of like a modern throwback. But it's, but like, once again, I think Tony Young had mentioned, and he was saying RoboCop. Like, RoboCop, essentially, he was just a normal cop on the job. gets killed and brought back to life as a giant robo person, like as a cyborg, basically. It's kind of crazy like that, but it's like, once again, it's like, I think what's really winning folks over is the relatability. So it's like the average Joe in real life may not be able to do some stuff, but at the same time, it's like some average Joe's been able to pull off the impossible. So it's like that. It's that relatability factor to me.
You know, Tony Young is absolutely right. I totally wanted to say Bruce Leroy. I totally wanted to say Bruce Leroy. Anyway, so LGZ, I'd be remiss if I didn't go to you. You know, how's the genre evolved to you over the years? And then we can move on to the next topic. Unless you had something else to
I think the way it's changed is, you know, people are. It's getting better, right? It used to be people were calling action. You know, a movie would have like 20 minutes worth of action, and they say, "Oh, this is an action movie." And I think now, like I said, but of course, like I said, I wouldn't consider that action movie. And now it's like we have a lot more movies that have a lot more action and give more bang for the buck, so to speak. So I think that's a good thing, and I agree with what you said earlier. There's a lot of, I guess, pressure on these actors to, you know, do their own stunts and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But until you jump from a building and hit yourself on the next building, and then you have to be in the hospital and all that kind of stuff, like sometimes it goes too far. Like the whole Tom Cruise thing when he was doing MI-12 or whatever it was. You know, that's a little bit too much. But he always does his own stunts, and he should have been dead like 20 years ago, but I mean, neither here nor there. But I just think that now, you know, it's just, you know, it's people are getting more bang for their buck when it comes to action. When it comes to true action films, they're getting more bang for their buck. And I think as long as they keep progressing that way and really giving the action and not just saying it's an action movie and then giving a bunch of dialogue or drama or side plots and all that, I think, you know, said it will continue to keep evolving.
Okay. Dido, you got anything to add?
The evolution, as you say. Back. Well, I think everybody basically already said everything that I can say about the way action movies are nowadays, to the wanting to see themselves in action movies, to not having anything but action in it, and when it starts to have anything else in it, it kind of loses their flavor. I can enjoy an action movie if it sprinkles in other stuff in it, and I would still consider it an action movie because that's usually the reason why I go see it, is the action part of it. It's not a drama, it's not a comedy, and though it may sprinkle some of that stuff in there. So that's probably most of the evolution of it, is them just kind of putting in a little bit of other types of genres into it. It's not just a plain action movie. You still get plain action movies. John Wick is a plain action movie. It's just action. That's what it is. That's supposed to do. Seriously, I think it was probably like maybe 50 lines of dialogue throughout that whole entire movie. The script was probably 3 pages.
I think you're being very conservative with that one, but okay.
Yeah, it was probably even less than that, because it was just beginning to end, straight action. And a lot of people, that's what they wanted, and I enjoyed it that way.
I mean, certain action movies, sure, I think are ones that you can go into the theater, sit down with your popcorn, and just completely turn your brain off and be like, ooh, yeah, look at that, yeah, that's awesome.
And I think a lot of people, the ones that did not like Endgame, because that's what they were expecting. They were expecting beginning to end, no action, no character development, no plot, no movement in the story. It was just like, oh, we're going to fight Thanos for 3 hours. I think that's what they were expecting, and that's why they were disappointed. But it had all the other stuff in there, and it still had the right amount of action of it, even though it was broken up. They had, you know, things that needed to happen in order to get to the action, and so for me, an action movie, I don't necessarily get into the whole let's sprinkle the stuff in there, but like I think that's the biggest evolution of it, is that science fiction action movie, like Fifth Element, like some people were saying The Matrix is a science fiction movie, but it's an action movie that has science fiction elements in it. I mean, because they're kind of almost equal when it comes to it, because it wouldn't. Its placement is science fiction, and its style is action, and those are the advancements, I think, because in the 80s there was not any of that stuff at all. It was, man from out of town, man being picked on, blow, that's Rambo, right. In the jungle, people get killed, shoot stuff, you
doing that voice. Does it mean? Could we automatically assume that a movie is an action movie if it has the theater guy, the trailer guy's voice in his trailer?
Yeah, he knew how to set it up. Those trailers back in the day, kind of off topic, they knew how to do trailers without giving away the movie. And
Don LaFontaine.
Yes.
In a world.
They didn't give away the movie and made it interesting. They need to bring that style back.
Yeah, he did.
Is it that hard to bring? Anyway, I digress.
You know what, though? You know what? If you watch the trailer, if you try and go watch some old school trailers nowadays, what's the one thing we hate about trailers nowadays? They give the whole damn movie away. Dude, you should watch some of them old trailers. They give everything away.
Some of them for the 80s gave nothing away. They just showed a bunch of action scenes and some people talking out of context. You're like, okay. A lot of them are like that. You're like, in a world when a guy breaks his will, somebody from out of town tries to fix it for him. And you're like, okay, what?
Yeah.
Hobo with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Somebody made it was L. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Those style of freaking out of context, didn't tell you what the hell was going on, and had people talk. I think they should bring movie trailers back like that. But as going back to the topic, the evolution is taking the genre, this kind of genre, taking the action, getting it together. It's kind of like how they say you got your peanut butter, my chocolate, my peanut butter, and they ate that bitch, and it was tasty, and I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So now Miaoyan wanted us to kind of go over kind of like some of our favorite movies, give some examples of some really good action movies, what are some really bad action movies, and what ones that are kind of just ugly, gritty, and just difficult to pick. I'll go. I'll pick one. So, honestly, my favorite action movie probably it's one that I just keep coming back to. A lot of people will say Bloodsport and stuff like that, but no, to me, my favorite action movie that I love watching over and over again is Fist of Legend. Like Jet Li's Fist of Legend is immaculate. I love that thing. I mean, even though you could almost say it's a bad action film, like especially if you watch the dub, some of the dubbing in there is almost so purposely bad. Like I think it was the general for the Chinese guy, his voice was just so bad. But to me it was, but still I just loved it so much. Fist of Legend was probably my favorite. Bad action film that I probably still loved, and we talked about it in the pre-show yesterday, or the pre-show yesterday, was Showdown in Little Tokyo. That was another one, the one with Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee. That was another one of my favorites that I absolutely loved. But it was a bad movie. It was a bad movie, but you just loved it. It was Dolph Lundgren, Brandon Lee, Hiroyuki Tagawa, the ultimate Japanese bad guy, may I add. I mean, did they get any better than that guy?
No, I mean, that was one of the gems back in the day that I think was, even your diehard 90s action cinema fan would know that, would have that in their list. Like you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just, an ugly action film. It's hard to quantify ugly action film, but what was that one? I
could probably tell you what.
The Perfect Target?
The Perfect Target?
Yeah, it was just a. It was just.
You're not talking about The Perfect Weapon, are you?
Perfect Weapon? Yeah, The Perfect Weapon.
That was was my shit though, dude.
No, man. No, man.
Dude, listen, that dude, like, as far as I'm concerned, was like the origin of saying throwing hands, bro. Like that. Jeff Speakman was that guy, like in that movie, dude.
Nah, man.
And like you said,
Carrie
I'm over here giving you a lot of side eyes. I'm over here giving you a lot of side eye, Fall of Marvel.
No, man.
Why?
Nah, dude. Nah, man. Come on now.
Whatever.
Oh, you know, Mr. Rigor Mortis brings up a good one. Like, all the ugly action films are like all the American B movies, like American Ninja and the First Punisher. First Punisher does belong in that category, but damn it, I love that movie. I do. Anyway.
Now who we talking about giving a side eye to? Yeah, and
come on now. You know, y'all know Dolph Lundgren was a badass Punisher now. Come on.
Dude, that movie was god awful, dude. I'm sorry, no.
His Punisher scenes was sweet. I don't even want to hear it. Anyway.
Nah.
Anyway, let's hear yours. What was a good, bad, and ugly action film for you, Mr. Fallen Marvel?
This one's a hard choice because I love so many, but I think one of the ones that stood out to me as far as good, and the thing is, I'm more of a martial arts junkie. I'm gonna have to say Legend of Drunken Master.
Was a good one? Was the best?
Yeah, was a good one. Those was like the good one.
Yeah.
Bad. Let me see. What did I watch recently? I watched what was it? The Sidekicks recently.
Sidekicks? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
With
Chuck Norris.
With Chuck Norris?
Yeah. That movie doesn't hold up very
dude.
well. That movie doesn't hold up very well. I still love it, but it does not hold up in any way, shape, or form.
Dude, wait. That's almost not even an action film, though.
I know, but it's like I have to throw it in there because it was Chuck Norris and it was all about martial arts. So, and plus Mako was in there too. So it's like Mako was in there too.
Wow.
So like it's like, hey, it is what it is.
Okay. All right.
As far as ugly, you know what? I think I will say. Ooh, just thought about it. Double Team. That was an ugly movie.
Jean-Claude and Dennis Rodman. Oh man,
that was an ugly one.
Yeah, yeah, I have to give you on that one. Yeah,
but Simon Says like a close second.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, what were they thinking? Trying to make Dennis Rodman into an action?
Man, Rodman was everywhere in the headlines.
Yeah, he was.
Man, they tried to capitalize on that as much as they could.
Yeah. All right, let's get a lady's perspective. Let's go to Miayen. What's your good, bad, ugly?
Well, I'm trying to forget all that stuff y'all just said.
Tater.
So it was really hard for me to narrow it down to like the good, bad, and ugly. So for the good, and I thought I had it nailed down, but I didn't. So for the good, Kill Bill is my good because if it's on, I will watch it. It doesn't matter. If somebody mentions it and they're like, "Oh, it's on," or we talk about it, run lines through it or something, I'm gonna watch it. So Kill Bill kind of took the spot with Salt and Bad Boys, like running up behind it because those are other two movies that I will watch. I will just stop and watch them. Bad is anything with Steven Seagal in it, really. And The Scorpion King, because that's really bad. Like, I love the movie. I was obsessed with it.
Wait a minute, what?
It came out.
Wait a minute, what? Wait a minute. That's your ugly pick?
No, that's bad.
That's your bad action film pick? Okay, all right.
bad because
Okay.
I was saying I love the movie. I'll still watch it. So I'm giving
But
you
it's a bad
something
one.
that
Yeah.
I like,
Yeah.
but I know it's bad, and I know it
It's a
was said
bad
in the
film.
chat,
Yeah.
and I kind of was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's on there.
Yeah, I'll
It's
give you
a
that.
bad
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
But I still enjoy it. And ugly for me is like it's the gore in it and just maybe the aesthetics of the sets and stuff like that. So for me, it was like the John Wick series because like they take those hits and I'm just like, oh, that was so ugly. That was so bad. But I'll keep watching, you know? And then also Mad Max, both of the Mad Max movies because they were in a wasteland. It was terrible.
Wait.
It was
Both?
ugly.
There was at least 3 of them. What are you talking about? You
Oh,
talking Mel
Beyond
Gibson ones?
Thunderdome.
I'm talking about Fury Road and I'm talking about the Mel Gibson one, yes.
What about the Road Warrior?
What about it?
Oh, we
saying.
forgetting about Beyond Thunderdome?
No, that was included.
Gonna make our list. So they under that apparently.
I mean,
Okay.
but those are just ugly to me. So it's not so much like for me, ugly is just like it's kind of like a satisfying thing, like a good satisfying death on camera, or you just see that they're like in a gritty kind of place. So and it was still good and kind of so again for me, ugly means something a little different. It's not ugly as in this was like a ugly ass terrible movie that probably people shouldn't watch. No, that's not me.
Oh, okay. Just come out of it feeling dirty.
Yeah, it's just like, man, that was a good movie, but I got it. Ooh, that was woo. It's
All right, so I'm before I turn it over to somebody else. Maurice Breaker brings up a good one, but does it? And this might be an example of one that will either allow or disallow as an action film. So he says Masters of the Universe is the worst and is ugly. So would we consider Masters of the Universe an action film? If we were basing it on LGZ's ratio of like 85% action scenes, I think it falls way short. Would you guys consider that an action film?
By default, I would say it is.
I don't. I don't consider it an action film.
I would not.
That's just me.
I mean, in that same token, I mean, would we consider Flash Gordon an action film? Because that technically was.
Yeah, no.
I don't think so. Honestly, I have to hold my because honestly, I need to go watch that. I need to watch that again because it's fuzzy. So
wait a minute, you need to watch Flash Gordon? Watch it again just because the Queen soundtrack is everything. Like, just for that. Of course. Yeah. So, just saying. I'm
interested to see to hear what LGZ has to
say
because
I am too. How about you, LGZ?
Okay, so when I think of action movies, good action movies, so my good would probably be
The Matrix.
No, I don't consider I don't consider The Matrix an action movie. I don't consider The Matrix an action movie.
Thanks, girl. I'm right there with you.
You might be hurting somebody's feelings here.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah, no, right. But I mean, as far as like, like good, I would say it's probably a toss-up between the Mission Impossible movies and the John Wick movies. Those are good action throughout, fully action, fight scenes, bombs, whatever, like all that stuff that constitutes action scenes. Those are probably my top two of that. That's where I would probably put The Matrix. I'm not saying that it's a bad movie, but it could have been not that I'm saying that it could have been better, but I wish it had so much more. It could have had so much more action had it not been going down the path of the one. And, even though that's important, I just think they spent a little bit too much time on that. And so, like, that's kind of where it falls from grace for me. But it is a great movie, and it does have action in it. But I would, like I said, I just wouldn't consider that an action movie. That's more of like a sci-fi action thriller type of thing or something. You know what I mean? My ugly, I guess... And again, I'm still using where, I'm not necessarily saying that it's a bad movie, but it's just ugly. That would be like the Taken series, because it had action, but it was like some choppy shit action. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe you guys are not going to understand that, but like when I'm thinking about like action movies and I'm thinking about Taken, it was like rough, rugged. It had action, but it was like choppy and it was like all over the place. And I think there was one particular, I don't know if it was Taken 2, when Liam had to climb that fence, like this shit camera. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just good movie, but just bad execution, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Or bad.
Yeah, it had more potential, but they screwed it away, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where I would rank my stuff.
All right. So Tony Young is like practically screaming in the chat to talk about what he considers like the ugliest, most grotesque, nasty movie he's ever seen, and I have to agree with him. Warriors of Virtue. What the hell was that? Like really? What was that? What was that? Warriors of Virtue. What?
Let me fill you in on this one.
You gonna tell me you liked this movie as a kid, didn't you? Didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I still kind of have a special place in my heart for that movie because it has so much potential, but it was just. Like I can't even say nothing. Like I just.
You can like it if you want.
You can like it if you want.
No, me liking it ain't the problem. It's just like looking back on it, just realizing how much potential got squandered in it. And it's just.
I mean, I will say this. I ain't even gonna bother you on this one. You enjoy it. It had some parts that you liked, right. And that's okay.
It appealed to you. It appealed to the child inside of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it did.
That's okay. Everything everything for everyone.
Right. Plus, Buddy from Big Trouble in Little China was in it, so it was like, I was just like, okay, hey, somebody that I know is in this movie, cool. But other than that, yeah, it's just one of those things that you kind of just either still love or kind of just look at it with an acquired taste, or I don't know. Like it's just one of those. That's all. Just one of those childhood fantasy types that just kind of works in some places and kind of doesn't in others, and there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, so let's turn it over to Dido. What was your good, bad, and ugly action pick? There's some really good ones in the chat, by the way. Like really good ones. And they're mostly bad ones that they're piling on. Anyway, go ahead.
When it comes to movies, action movies, because we've seen so many of them over the years, it's to me it's difficult to pick one. So for me, it's kind of like picking the people stars who I like that are in the movies, because like I like a lot of Arnold's action movies. I like a lot of Sylvester Stallone's action movies. I like a lot of Van Damme's and a lot of the martial arts action movies that came out either in Hong Kong or what have you back in the day. And just to pick one, it's very difficult because there's so many to go through. A lot of people already know one of my favorites is Big Trouble in Little China. I don't know if some consider that an action movie.
I watched it the other day.
Yeah, I have yet to watch it this year. I have to watch it on my yearly. You got to watch it yearly. But I haven't watched it this year so far, but I will. But Big Trouble in Little China is definitely one of my favorites. I like Commando a whole bunch. I like, just going all over into my head, because I always also think that Tombstone, that's an action movie, and I really like that one, even though it's the Western, got the Western flavor on it. Ugly is kind of difficult too, because I don't think ugly in the same way. I like violence in my movies. I like to see, but if you want to talk about like the ones that make you go, oh wow, holy crap, it probably had to be the first RoboCop, and I'm talking about the X-rated one. My gosh, when I first saw that on Blu-ray, it kind of scared me because it was so freaking realistic. Like, holy shit. When he blew
saw
off his
when you saw it
hand and
on
he picked
Blu-ray?
up and looked at it. Yeah, when he picked up and looked at it, and when you actually saw him blow his brains out, I was like, what the fuck? And then when Ed 209 unleashed on that dude and it
Meat
just kept
particles
going on him, I was just like, holy shit. Holy effing shit. Like, now that does nothing to me because I'm so desensitized. But then, and this was like the late 90s when they brought out that DVD, I was just like, oh my gosh, wow. And bad, it's kind of hard for me to do bad because I don't remember when I watch a movie, and if I think it's bad, it gets erased from my dry board in my brain where I just don't even think about it ever again. And I only try to remember the good stuff and the stuff that I want to watch. And when it comes to action films, it's usually those B-rated ones that you just picked up on a whim, and there's starring nobody, like my man Michael Dudikoff, I think his name is that his name? He did like the American Ninja movies back in the day, and yeah, so it'd be those type of. Oh gosh, you know what's bad? I didn't even see it. I posted a clip on my Facebook not too long ago. That was probably bad, and it was a dude walking down a beach. He sees a girl jogging, and he goes, "Is like, can I jog with you?" And then he starts jogging with her, right? And then they start playing like frisbee, throwing it back and forth. Then he throws the frisbee to the dude. He's like, "Man, you can't even throw a frisbee." He's like, "Let me get that." And there's a guy like supposed to be like a guard. He has a machine gun on him, wearing the glasses, takes the thing off, and they start throwing the fucking frisbee back and forth. Like, the hell is this shit? And then my man pulls out his pack and pulls out like a frisbee that had razor blades on it, and then I'm just like, yeah, that's bad. And those were those B movies from the 80s. I don't know the name of it. I didn't particularly watch a whole bunch of them. I did watch some back in the day when Blockbuster was king, because I just pick up stuff. I go rent stuff all the time. But they don't stick up here because they're not meant to stay in my brain sacks. I don't need them in there. I got other stuff that I need to keep in there, and that's not one of them. But if I were to have watched that movie, I would say that one was bad.
Okay.
And can I say really quick?
Yeah.
Every time I think of when I think of action movies, the first person that pops into my head, whether you like them or don't, and I have an indifference toward him, is Michael Bay, because he is known for doing action movies because of his sequences, like doing the explosions and these like just wild scenes, you know what I mean? And so that is actually, other than the John Wick part, that is what like made me think of like, we need to talk about this, because like it's so many movies out there that Michael Bay has directed or produced that it's just, that's his thing. I really would just like to hear him talk about how he thinks up these movies and, you know, why he loves action so much and stuff like that. But Michael Bay is just that guy. Whether you like his movies or don't, he's that action person that when you think about, especially 90s action movies, I'm like, so did Michael Bay direct this? Because
no, the thing is,
like the look on her face was like, so did Michael Bay.
The thing is with Michael Bay, his explosions are a bit more theatrical and organized.
Yes.
Like it's to the point where it's not even realistic. Like explosions literally go off in a straight line.
But it's like exactly that's the quintessential like 90s action movie thing. Like think about what is the movie?
Sparingly though.
But think about Armageddon, that movie, or like
was one of his better ones, yeah.
Even on my good list, Bad Boys. Like I will, like I said,
first one,
watch it. Yeah. Well, Bad Boys, not Bad Boys 2. So
okay.
So just watching it, because I saw a couple clips from it when I was earlier today, and I was just like, why is some of this stuff blowing up? Like they over here. Like, I mean, they fighting over here, and it's a car chase going there, and things are blowing up over there, and I'm like, what is going on here? So
yeah,
it's kind of one of those things, but it's still exciting when you watch it. You know what I mean? So
Michael Bay do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All the explosions in Bad Boys made sense though.
Some of them didn't from the clip.
They were dealing with ether, and ether is highly flammable and explosive.
I'm not talking about that scene, but I'll say
it had to have been in the airport scene in the end, probably.
Right. Had to be the airport.
Okay, so jet fuel's not flammable. Okay.
Right.
It is, but it's just kind of one of those things because watching the scene, I'm just like, they're doing something over here, and then these people are struggling and fighting, and then way off in the distance, shit is blowing up, and I'm like, okay. But Al, what were you saying?
No, I was just gonna ask who made the Transformers movie, the first one that Marky Mark played in.
Michael Bay.
It was still Michael Bay. No, it wasn't Marky Mark. It was Shia LaBeouf. He played the first.
No. I'm talking about the one with Marky Mark.
Oh yeah. No, those were all Michael Bay. Those were all Michael Bay.
The only one he didn't direct was Bumblebee. That's the only one he didn't direct.
Right.
Okay.
But he still was involved with the other one, the one he didn't direct, didn't he?
I mean, he's executive producer, but as far as like creative input he had on it, I don't know how much he did, but considering how the movie came out, like he probably had little to no creative involvement in that movie, to be honest. Because all his movies that he has directed has his usual stamp on it. Even
robots,
to this day,
explosions, and mayhem.
Even still to this day, the reboot Ninja Turtles one, as far as I'm concerned, he directed those too.
Disgusting! Don't mention that. Disgusting.
It says that he was producer, but like, come on, you don't have somebody to come on and direct the movie and make it exactly like a Michael Bay film. Like that was Michael Bay's movie.
It was so bad.
He did not direct that movie. Let's just put it out that he did not.
It says he didn't direct it. But let's be real.
His fingers was all over that. His fingers was all over that. That was disgusting.
And if he directed even one scene in that movie, he would have been credited as the director. So he didn't direct it.
It's technically his own his movie company, so you can pretty much put whatever you want on it.
I'm just saying, it's just like having a byline. If you write an article, you're going to put your byline on that. You're going to say, that's by me. That's the kind of dude that Michael Bay is.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. All I know is that, like, somebody else supposedly directed, but it was a Michael Bay film. Like, that's the thing. Like, it hit every one of the Michael Bay-isms beat for beat, yet it was directed by another person.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he might have wrote the whole storyboard for everybody. He might have wrote everything out for them.
You know what's funny? Remember they had the that movie about the Benghazi soldiers or whatever. They had that movie that came out a few years back.
13 hours.
Yeah, something like that. So I remember I was at the movie theater. I was watching a different movie, and that trailer came on for the thing, and it said, and I think it didn't say initially, like it was talking about, in the world. They were talking about the Benghazi people and all that kind of stuff. And then at the end, it said a film directed by Michael Bay. The whole goddamn theater was like, oh, shit. You know what I'm
saying? I believe it.
Because Michael Bay is just like so over the top crazy.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But
all you want. The man is the reason that a lot of those film studios get to make the other movies that they make.
That is very true. He brings in the money.
I'm not arguing against the facts.
Right.
I'm arguing against the facts.
That's why when I think of it's in my brain, action movie, Michael Bay.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Right. All right. So GQ, what's your pick for Good, Bad, and Ugly action film?
Good would be Enter the Dragon. Just because obviously Bruce Lee. I would definitely say The Matrix, even though Elle said it was an action movie and then put it in as a bad action movie. So you can't have it both ways.
Can't have it both ways. Did she really do that? I must have missed that.
No, I was just saying that I'm saying that I wouldn't consider it an action movie because it had so much others that path of the one. But I mean, it's action packed as hell. It's just not an action movie.
But how are you gonna put it on your bad action movie list?
Because I explained that, I prefaced that by saying like it's not that it's a bad movie. It's just it doesn't have everything that I would consider. I told you what I thought my picks were.
But wait a minute. But wait. But you're trying to have it both ways by doing that.
I'm not trying to have it both ways.
Because she explained her vision before she said it. Y'all don't go on with your
No. You can't say I don't consider it an action movie and then say it's a bad action movie. No.
No, I'm saying it's totally action packed. It's just not, like I said, it's too much other stuff going on in it. Like,
I don't totally disagree with you. I mean, the first Matrix, yes, I consider that an action movie. The second one, yeah, it's kind of getting closer. The third, absolutely not. The third one, no, not an action movie. But that's just.
Can we let GQ finish what he was saying?
Yes, please go ahead. So you said The Matrix. Are you trying to say The Matrix you consider a good action film?
Yeah. The first Matrix was a good action film because it changed the game over here to more of that. Hey, you actors are going to get your butts in the gym. You're going to get your butts in the dojos and learn how to do some of this stuff for real because we're tired of all this super duper hyper close tight shots of stunt doubles doing all the work for you. So that's what I loved about The Matrix. Kill Bill changed the game in the sense of the revenge film. And obviously Tarantino always does great work. And then John Wick is definitely in there. Obviously the Marvel films, but that's a whole different subgenre of action films. So I want to leave those off of that. As far as I would also have to throw Big Trouble in Little China in there. I'm with Dino on that one. That one just works. As far as a bad action film, I don't know. I mean, there's some that are considered bad because they just didn't perform well, like The One, for example. But The One was fun. Like
The One was great.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't even consider.
The One was great.
That was great. That was good.
I don't care what anybody says. The One was great.
The One is so.
The first time I saw it, I was disappointed. Not gonna lie.
Really?
Now you're bringing that up. Yeah, when I saw it in the theater, I felt disappointed.
Yeah,
like
the one had a lot of potential, and what they were trying to do, it was a little bit ahead of its time from the CGI standpoint, because the face replacements with Jet Li just weren't good. And I mean, obviously, they're slaves to the technology that they have available to them. But the funny thing is, the original concept was supposed to be The Rock as the main character. And obviously, once he wasn't going to do it, that changed the entire way they were going to handle the action.
Wait a minute.
But
The One was originally supposed to star The Rock as wow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it would have been a whole different type of story.
Yeah, it would have been
a martial artist. But I don't know. I mean, it just, The One in and of itself is so simple, and there's nothing wrong with it being simple. But I think once they got to that battle between him and himself, and they were trying to, explain how fast they were, and they had that whole fight, in slow motion with all the sparks around them, kind of giving you an idea of this is how fast they are, Dragon Ball style or whatever. It just came off kind of weak. And I think if they would have revisited that now with the technology they have now, they could have made that whole fight between them really, really, really good. And as far as ugly, I mean, I don't really deal with or associate with anything that's ugly. So
come on, play along. Come on.
I don't have anything on that list because again, there's any movie that falls under ugly probably would not make it into my collection. So I mean that means I probably wouldn't have watched it.
So give us an example of one that you wouldn't dare possibly put in your collection.
There isn't much of anything that I don't put in my collection that I've, there's some reason to own a particular. I have Showgirls. So I mean, like, there's reasons.
This dude would have Mario on Blu-ray when it comes out, dude. Come on now.
No, I actually wouldn't. I have Mario on VHS. That's it.
Oh, you wouldn't have it on Blu-ray?
Mario, as far as I know, only got to DVD anyway. Like that was as far as they went with it. But yeah, like for example, no, I don't own that. Not on Blu-ray.
So that would be ugly.
I don't own it.
On Blu-ray.
Or Ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet.
The argument that it is like, yeah, Aeon Flux is kind of an ugly movie.
I mean, if you really want to put like throw a movie under the bus like that, I mean, you could say the original Mad Max World Warrior, that was garbage. You could say, God, what was that movie? Willow, that was kind of garbage.
No.
What? No. Stop it. No, stop. No. What? Stop. No. What? You crazy. No.
I didn't like
wow.
Simple as that.
That's fine to say you didn't like it, but you don't say it's an ugly action film. Come on, man. Yeah, no, dude, nah.
It was a weak sauce garbage movie to me.
Man, dog, nah.
And like I said, I thought that
was like a more of like a.
It was a fantasy movie anyway. It wasn't really an action film.
That was like an action movie.
Okay, back then all of that stuff was action.
Okay. Nah, I don't think so. So, I'm glad you said that though. So, obviously a lot of action films blur the lines. GQ actually brought up some of the Marvel films. Some people consider them action, some people don't. Some of them are almost like a hybrid. You got the Fast and the Furious movies that are definitely a hybrid. Action, they're more considered action racing, not really action thriller. Action heist, you could say that. You got, like Dido said, the Rush Hour is like a buddy cop film, action comedy. So a lot of films that blur those lines. How does one quantify putting an action film before the other qualifiers? Like for the Matrix, would you consider that action sci-fi or sci-fi action?
Before we say that, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you consider a film that has a lot of action in it, but is crime based, an action film?
An example, please.
Fast and Furious. Because it's a crime based film, but like they're racing cars and shit like that. Like, it's an action movie.
Yeah.
It's not
it is
on the top of the list as an action movie, but I don't really think that's a good example of something that blurs the line.
Fast and Furious became pure action once you got to Fast 5.
Absolutely.
So before, what was it? Just because racing movies considered?
It was its own subgenre of action, because if you really look back at the original film, there were chase sequences, there was gunplay, there were hand-to-hand fights, there was conflict back and forth, revenge story. It had all the elements that make up an action film.
So it had action, and then it had the crime element. Those two things, action movie.
Yeah, I understand. That's what I'm saying.
I think we're saying, like, in terms of like pure action, like we're talking about something that like doesn't slow down at all, and like Fast Five.
So back then, when Fast Furious first started, that's like an action movie. Because it
fits in the category, but because of like how it was paced, it was more crime story driven than like.
No, that's what made the movie bad. That didn't mean that it wasn't an action movie. It was a bad action movie.
All right, so how about this one? How about this one for you, Yayan? How about where would you put a movie like The Chase? The one with Charlie Sheen and Christy Swanson. Where would you put
my God.
I mean, I'm not a person you should ask that because I've never seen that movie.
Okay.
I'll answer that. That movie's a comedy. That movie is a comedy.
A comedy.
Like I can't. That's a comedy. Like that's not a. That was never. I remember watching that like when it was new when I was young, whatever. Like watching that movie. It's like okay. It kind of looked like it was supposed to, but like deep down, that movie was a comedy. Like that movie wasn't an action to me.
Just because it was so ridiculous, the whole premise of it?
Not only that, it's just that like, okay, the whole thing was like a whole squad of police cars chasing this one guy because he kidnapped this heiress or whatever. And it was like between that, nothing really happened except all these crazy hijinks. Mm-hmm. Maybe like a car crash here and there happened, but other than that, it really nothing happened. It was just like all these just crazy hijinks. Like I just nah.
All right, so there was another one that was right on the tip of my tongue, and it was right on the tip of my tongue. I'll have to remember it. I think somebody had mentioned it in the chat. Snap.
Well, you were asking about the Matrix, so I can say my thing about the Matrix. While the Matrix, I think, opened the floodgates to more fantasy and more sci-fi movies being taken seriously in the box office, and as far as their action elements. And I say that because The Matrix has a heavy sci-fi story. Like Elle was saying, with the one being the whole thing and it having the, this different world and then the technology aspect and all that kind of stuff. And you have all those things going on and being very heavy in The Matrix. And then you have the action as well, along with it, going concurrently. So for me, I think that The Matrix opened up the floodgates for, again, sci-fi and fantasy films being taken more seriously. But for that reason, I don't consider it an action movie. I think it is a sci-fi movie that has a whole lot of action in it, just like all the Marvel movies and all that kind of stuff, because those are considered fantasy, adventure, and stuff like that, which they are, and they also happen to have a lot of action. So
Okay.
that's my reasoning for The Matrix.
Would everybody else agree that you would disqualify the Marvel films as pure action, like not even really throw action in it? They're just more superhero films, and it gets its own classification. GQ, I think you disagree with that, right?
I disagree with that because the thing is, if you want to start stripping things down to their base levels, then you can do that with everything. You have to understand that action has a ton of subgenres.
I think it is a sci-fi movie that has.
You have to remember that action has a ton of subgenres in it, and all of these films can easily be categorized as action in one form or another, whether it be fantasy,
so are superhero movies a subgenre of action then? Because I don't think that they're a subgenre of action.
What else would they be a subgenre of?
They can be a subgenre of fantasy, which they always have been, or
fantasy isn't its own genre though. Fantasy is just another subgenre in the midst of either action, drama, or documentary.
What? I mean, that doesn't, like, it is you can have a action movie that is not necessarily, well, no, you can have a superhero movie that is not necessarily like an action movie, or like they can fit in any, like, what?
Give me an example of a superhero movie that is not an action film.
I wouldn't consider Captain Marvel an action film. I don't consider Age of Ultron an action film.
Age of Ultron opens up with an action set piece.
I don't consider it an action film. That's probably most of the action in the damn movie. At the beginning and the end of the movie. That's it.
No,
it doesn't have a whole lot of action in that film.
Really?
Go
back and watch it.
It is an adventure movie, but I do not think that I would not call a lot of the films, and it's okay for them not to be action movies. Like, some of them have 50% action, 50% other things, but not all of them are action movies. And I just don't consider them to be that.
But you also don't consider The Matrix to be an action movie, even though it is the movie that revolutionized
action. It's a sci-fi. It's a strong sci-fi movie. It did great things for the sci-fi genre, because that's why we have so many more sci-fi movies and stuff like that are taken seriously, that are being nominated for Oscars, that are just better than they were back in the day. So,
all right, real quick, let me correct Mr. Rigor Mortis. I said superhero movie. I did not say comic book movie. Road to Perdition does not count because it is not a superhero movie.
Correct.
So correct. Moving on.
Right.
Realistically, here's why I would throw out the trying to push superhero movies out of the action category, because realistically, once you get into the ridiculous, super-powered, fantastical things, and the large action set pieces, complete with explosions and death and gunplay and all these other, whatever you want to throw in there, how are you not smack dab in the middle of an action movie?
Right. Now,
because, for example, if you want to say a heavily influenced sci-fi movie that does not have a lot of action, go back to that piece of trash that was Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
It's a trash, dude. Come on, man.
That movie trash.
Piece of trash.
The only thing that came out of that is you got the Next Generation theme song. Other than that, Star Trek: The Motion Picture was garbage.
No, man. I can't agree with that. Now,
I don't care if you agree with it or not. That movie was heavily sci-fi. No, not much action at all.
no. I'm not disagreeing that it wasn't an action movie. It's not an action movie. No, it's a sci-fi movie. Period.
Now you go back to the Chris Pine Star Trek, the first one he did. That's
Those
an
are
action
action
movie.
movies. Those are action sci-fi movies, without question.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I still think that there are sci-fi movies that have a lot of action.
No. You need to flip that.
Nope. Don't plan to.
Flip it. It's an action movie with a sci-fi base. No, flip it. That's what a lot of people don't really like those movies. Classic Trek fans don't really like those movies because it subverted. It made it less sci-fi and it made it more about the action. You know, that's why a lot of people didn't like those movies.
I just think, I still think that it is based in it's Star Trek, for goodness sake. It's a sci-fi movie.
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Mr. Rigor Mortis. He said Batman vs Superman is not an action movie. It was a sleeping pill.
One could say that. So when we say that all adventure movies are action movies, or are they just another subgenre of action as well?
Adventure, I think, is a subgenre, because the thing is with adventure, it's like adventure movies to me are something that's like more quest based. Like they usually like have to go somewhere, going on a journey to go
gain something. So an adventure movie cannot exist without it being an action movie. So you would say National Treasure is an action movie?
Yeah.
It's more adventure.
You got all that other stuff in there.
It's more adventure heavy, but like it's technically an action movie.
No. It's either an adventure movie or it's an action movie.
Action adventure.
Action being like it's underbased. Like I've never seen adventure movies being a subgenre of action movies, but if that's what you guys think,
so because you got to think about it, like with movies that are essentially adventure / action. Adventure movies typically have like a certain kind of theme to it. It means like kind of like it's more broader, and it's like a lot of like exotic locales like involved, like Star Wars. Star Wars is definitely action adventure. Mm-hmm. Like it's more so adventure than it is action. So it's like when you have something like Willow is more adventure fantasy that has action in it, but it's not primarily an action movie. It's mostly a fantasy adventure.
No, absolutely. Goonies. Goonies is an adventure movie. Like, Indiana Jones. Most of those Indiana Jones movies are not action movies; they're adventure movies.
So Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is an action movie.
What?
No, it's an adventure comedy.
Hell no.
Right. So that means that adventure is its own genre. That's what I'm saying. Because it is an adventure.
Oh, is that movie. Okay? That's what you're trying to say. Okay,
that's the point you were trying. Okay,
all right.
You were losing us with the point you were trying to make.
Right. I'm like, what?
That's why I put that one out there, because you got dumbfounded real quick, and then I brought you back. So an adventure is its own genre, right?
I consider it that.
Yes.
That's what I consider. I consider it that. Sure.
So if adventure is its own genre, superheroes goes under adventure.
No, they don't.
No, they touch too many.
A lot of them do. Just saying.
Like, you know what just happened? It was like Lito's like, okay, A plus B equals C, and B plus A equals C. And then it's like, yeah, everybody's like, yeah. Okay, so now we just said A plus B equals C, and it's like, no.
I ain't rolling with you on that.
The thing is, honestly, when it comes to superhero stuff, like the thing is, even though it's action, but like typically superhero stuff is more closer to science fiction and adventure.
A lot of it is, absolutely. I think a lot of it is, but some things don't fit into science fiction. Like most of the Batman stuff don't fit into science fiction, but it is adventure, but it's a hell of a lot of action in it too. So that's why, yes, it's easy to blur those lines, but I wouldn't make the case that all superhero movies are just action movies. I just don't make that case.
I don't think they. Well, okay. They're not purely action movies, but they definitely are action with something else.
No,
Like
I will say that all of them have action in them. We can all agree that they all have a lot of action in them. Some of them have 50%, some of them have more, some of them have less. But if we're going through what we said at the beginning of the show, then a lot of them do not qualify, in my opinion, as
pure action films. I get it. You know, Winter Soldier, like the Winter Soldier is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite Marvel movie of all time. That was more a
political thriller.
Action thriller.
But that's probably one of the closest movies that I would say is an action movie. And I have a whole nother case to make about that because of the bullshit that people want to say about realism. I'll stop there. But
that's a whole nother show. That's totally a whole nother show.
Yeah,
I want to say about realism.
I'm just bringing that up. I'm just bringing that's a point. We can stick that in the wall over here. But that is one of the ones I'd be like, okay, that's a serious action film that happens to also be a superhero movie, much like the Dark Knight. That's an action movie because it's a lot of fucking action going on in that movie.
I mean, it barely qualifies, but yeah, barely, but yeah.
There's a lot of action in what movie?
The Dark Knight, she said.
Let's see. Opens with a bank robbery. Goes to the sequence in the parking garage.
I don't wear hockey pads.
Yeah. Okay. Then it goes to a whole bunch of
a lot of exposition. That movie has a lot of exposition.
Yeah,
it goes to a whole bunch more talking.
I wouldn't say that it's 80. Just
I don't even think it's 50. Not even close
I wouldn't
to 50.
say that. I wouldn't say that Winter Soldier is 80, but like I said, close to being. If that's also an action movie,
I'd say Winter Soldier is probably 60-40.
What about Logan?
I would say 55.
Logan, dude.
Logan.
That's like 30% action scenes. It seemed like.
Yeah,
you said
like
30%.
30%. That's what it seems like.
Logan was like 70-30 at most. I would say 65-35 between like action and like story, whatever. Because like it's not to say it wasn't action scenes in it, but like that movie was like purely story driven.
So mostly adventure because they were going on a hell of an adventure.
All right, so
it can, but like it was still kind of more so like on the drama part though.
Oh,
like,
it's heavy drama. I'm not saying that, but
it was very dramatic.
All right, so we're getting kind of close. We need to wrap this up soon, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up this one. So I'm a little offended. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Like, I don't necessarily consider it. I mean, I consider it more action comedy, probably more comedy than action. But LGZ, how you gonna call The Big Hit a trash film? What? You called The Big Hit a trash film?
Because it was.
It was what?
It was
what?
It was
what?
It was a bad story. It was trash. Made me hate Lou Diamond Phillips. Like there's so many wrong ass things with that movie.
You have lost your mind.
I really haven't. Besides the blatant racism is like it's a fun movie, but it's not a well put together. That story was shit. And anybody who be like, that story was shit.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Chiro, what is great about that movie?
The movie is a spoof.
Other than the fact that Marky Mark is in it.
No, the movie is a spoof, and the shit is awesome. Are you kidding me? Bokeem Woodbine as Crunch was great. Let's see. Yes, Lou Diamond Phillips was great in that film. Mark Wahlberg, I mean, he was kind of just there. I didn't even like Melvin. I agree with everybody else. I didn't really like Melvin. I liked everything else in the film, despite Marky Mark. The movie was great.
That movie was very tongue in cheek.
Yes,
that was a movie that was not meant to be taken seriously at all. Like
at all. If you took it serious, there's something wrong with you.
Well, no, you knew it was a comedy, but it was like
It's a bad comedy.
A shit.
It's
comedy.
a bad
I don't even
comedy.
know-
It's a bad
Yeah,
comedy.
man, I mean, y'all mad because I don't like. I mean, it was a bad comedy.
It's a
Like,
bad
I
comedy.
mean, there's some comedy movies that like there's so like if you said watch what was that movie Fear of a Black Cat, right? That's also a spoof movie.
That movie was amazing,
That shit
though.
was funny.
That movie was hilarious.
Other stuff, no.
I
Like,
mean,
Fear of a Black Cat
there's
was
some-
hilarious.
there are some comedies that they're comedies and they miss the mark. It's just it is.
So
what
you
it
mean
is.
like almost
Thank
all of
you,
Will
thank
Ferrell's
you,
movies?
Thank you.
Kinda like that?
Realistically, that's why your internet breaking up because you're over there speaking that ill.
That travesty. What the hell is wrong with you? What
Nah,
the hell is wrong with you? What?
It missed the mark. I would agree. I'm gonna say with Lena, it missed the mark with
I think
me.
It didn't work. It didn't work for you, Al. It didn't.
Apparently,
work
it
for you.
did not.
Or CB4. That is also a spoof. That was funny.
TV. Mm-mm.
Like, okay, look,
That's
I will
both
say
movies.
this. I will say CB4 is funny up to a point,
Mhm.
but the thing is, if we're basically comparing the same two movies between that and Fear of a Black Hat, Fear of a Black Hat is way funnier.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying I'm saying, but it was also a spoof movie, like y'all saying.
Yeah.
that the Big Hit was. Y'all saying it was a Big Hit was a spoof movie. I got that. I understood that part
I
of
didn't
the
say
movie.
spoof. I said it was like more tongue in cheek.
What?
Like it was still it wasn't because the spoof
Tomato,
is like
tomato, tomato on that.
spoof is
Man.
like the Naked Gun
Right.
and Dracula Dead and loving it. Like those are spoofs. Like something that's like tongue in cheek is something like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Tropic Thunder, stuff like that. Those
Yeah.
things are tongue in
Even
cheek.
Tropic Thunder. So let's say Tropic Thunder.
That is a spoof of.
I mean, it is, but it's also it's
spoof.
a satire
But that
film
movie-
as well.
But
Though.
I'm saying, but even that movie was 10 times funnier than the Big Hit. Sliver Black Cat.
I mean,
No, yes, it was funnier than the Big Hit, but that doesn't make the Big Hit a bad movie.
Yeah, for me.
Dog.
For me too, because
I mean, hey,
Dog is
hey,
go
it is what it is.
crazy.
It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's just like, hey,
Hold on. So you're saying the Big Hit was what? A comedy or an action?
I was saying it was action comedy to
a
me.
bad movie.
She's saying it's just straight up bad movie.
it was a
Period.
tongue-in-cheek action comedy, is what it was.
Yeah, it's an action movie. It's supposed to be a funny action movie.
Yeah.
You know what the tongue-in-cheek action movie Beverly Hills Cop 2?
Okay, you
Okay,
get that's
your
fair.
point is what?
That's fair.
100 times better than this goddamn Big Hit movie. Fuck out of here.
I mean, there's no arguing that.
Well, I don't know.
That's an obvious comparison, but it's like
another wildly popular action action comedy. The Other Guys. That's another one. That is a
that is a
that's
spoof.
good.
That
It's
is definitely a
and it's
spoof.
good.
It
And
is,
it's
yes,
actually funny.
it is.
Yeah,
I
It's
would agree
actually
with
it
that.
depends
definitely a
on.
spoof.
Girl, you out your mind.
Hey,
You are out of your mind. Oh my god.
right. The Big Hit was funny too. You just didn't understand the comedy.
Right. You are out of your mind. Oh my
I know.
god.
I understood
Dude.
the comedy.
No,
It just wasn't. It just missed the mark.
No, it did not.
You have to.
People
Okay.
can dislike something and understand that they trying to make a joke and the shit just not funny.
No, here's why a lot of the jokes aren't funny to people in the Big Hit. You have to think like a sociopath. You have to think like an assassin. You have to think like a killer. And if you think along those lines,
Shit
and
is hilarious.
see people as just dollar signs and things just basically to get yourself some more money, that movie is hilarious.
The movie is hilarious.
If you go into it thinking that there's some type of moral high ground here, there's not supposed to be. It's a group of assassins that go around killing people so they can get paid.
Right.
No, I totally got it.
That's
Totally
not
got it.
again, yeah, you get that part, but
It
it's
was a bad movie.
funny.
And
Yeah,
no, the
that
funniest part.
I think you need to watch it again and turn off any and all emotions about morality. And
It was like for real, because it's
It
like
has nothing. But I'm saying it has
It's-
nothing to do with morality.
You're talking about morality. It has nothing to do with morality.
sure
Sometimes
it does. Okay, Melvin is an
It's just
assassin,
I
a
just
very
think it's a bad
efficient.
movie.
He's a very efficient assassin, and the chink in his armor is he can't stand people not liking him.
No, I got that. I definitely got. I mean, even the shit with Bokeem Woodbine, where he was like, with that thing with the hand thing.
Crunch.
I got all that. Like, I mean,
this shit is funny. Oh my god.
Okay, but here's what I don't understand. What is it about Lou Diamond Phillips that you didn't like?
So the thing that I did, the reason why I stopped liking Lou Diamond Phillips, because when I was watching that movie and Marvin was doing all the hits and stuff, and then Lou Diamond Phillips would go behind him and take pictures like selfies with the gun and shit.
Look at her. She laughing now. She laughed. She know it was funny. She laughing now. She can't help it. She know it was funny.
Exactly. It sounds like you just. It sounds like you just hated particular actors at the time for various
right.
You know full well when he and that other dude busted in there after everybody was dead and started unloading bullets. That was some of the funniest stuff in that movie. That movie was funny. I don't care what you say.
Hilarious.
Whatever.
It had phony moments, but overall, it was a bad movie. I'm literally like, I was not like, it wasn't. I'm like, I'm telling you this, and I'm laughing now. But when I was watching it, I was like, what the fuck
this
is
shit
this
is funny. Come on, you gotta watch it again. It was so funny. Oh my god.
When you and Lita come up here for the annual Culture
yes,
Junkies,
gotta watch it again.
Y'all about to sit in the room with everybody. Y'all about to watch that movie.
I challenge you not to laugh. I challenge you not to laugh.
I will challenge accepted. I will only watch that movie if you guys watch War on Everyone with Alexander Skarsgård and what is it?
I only want to see Dr. Selvig and Thor. That's it. Sorry.
I'm just saying, I'll watch that if you watch this. I watched it the other day, and it's an action movie, and it's a B movie.
Wait, what is it called? War on what?
War on Everyone.
Well, that sounds like that could be interesting.
Alexander Skarsgård and what is the guy's name? Hold on. So is it really Dr. Selvig going around killing people?
No. Alexander Skarsgård was Eric in True Blood.
Yeah, he was Eric in True Blood.
Oh, that sounds like something I don't want to watch.
It's a movie. It has its funny parts, but it's on the same. It's on par
Michael
with
Pena is in it.
You guys are talking about. Yeah, Michael Pena. They're detectives. And they're terrible.
But again, every movie like that has something that you can latch onto. Because like Cisco said in the chat, he was talking about crunch. He was talking, I said lanolin, not this aloe vera. Like
not this aloe vera bullshit, motherfucker.
That movie was so over the
was
top.
particular about the lotion he used.
Right, it was so over the top that it just made it was. I enjoyed it. Like
yeah, dude, this shit was funny. Oh, it was funny
when he was trying to do the whole Trace Buster scene. Like
yes,
there was stuff in that movie that's just funny.
Oh, Trace Buster.
So wait a minute. So that's an interesting part that you bring up. Because see, that was for me was one of the least. Because it was just like, how long y'all gonna keep on this damn? Because he was like, no, I got this one and the Buster and the Buster and the Buster. I was like, okay, how long y'all gonna? It's like 17 seconds.
No, that's what made it funny because it was so stupid.
I guess that's just not.
Again, it's the exact same thing as any of these other comedies when they run on a joke for a long time because the punchline has already been delivered right off the bat, and they're just grinding it and grinding it.
Name me something like that in Beverly Hills Cop 2, because that's also a comedy that went on and on and on and on.
Beverly Hills Cop 3. Beverly Hills Cop 3 is full of all that stuff.
Is that the one with Bronson Pinchot or whatever his name is?
That's the one that was PG-13 and had George Lucas in it.
So. And y'all, you gonna front on Avery Brooks as the godfather to the girl? Come on, man.
Right.
I love Avery Brooks. What do you mean? I've been loving him ever since he was on that TV show.
And he was in The Big Hit, and you hating on him? Come on.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah.
That's just
come
something that has to be watched as a group. That's a movie that has to be watched as a group.
Matter of fact, we're gonna rent out a theater. We're gonna sell tickets. We're gonna show The Big Hit and have everybody come to the theater and see
it. Yeah, like look, Hannah Omega was like, remember the final fight broken up by them seeing his life-size cardboard cutout of his video recommendations in the video store because he was the prime customer. Oh.
Right. The movie, I'm sorry. And Lou Diamond Phillips was so dirty in that movie.
He was great.
It was perfect.
Yes, he was great.
He went over there to his boy and was like, I need you to tell me the criminal mastermind, Melvin, behind this whole plot. It was like, dude, it's so obvious, but it was just like, dude, it was like whatever. The movie was funny.
The movie is hilarious, man. I don't care what anybody says. Ooh, that movie was so funny. My goodness, I'm gonna find it and so I can watch it again, dude. Because man, that movie was funny as hell. Woo! Anyway, so it's been a wild time. Obviously, talking about action movies. We're gonna go ahead and get out of here. 11:15. We'll let you enjoy the rest of your night. Get ready to go to bed. Remember next week, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. We're gonna be talking about what, Miao-Yin?
We are going to be talking about 90s video games and E3.
Yeah, so it's going to be great. Talking about, getting ready to talk about E3, talking about, all the games that are getting ready to come out, and, kind of how, another thing kind of, what's interesting about E3 this year? We already know that Sony isn't going to be there. And a lot of the big companies are kind of like pulling out of, shows like E3 and starting to do their own things, and it would be interesting to talk about that as well next week. But 90s video games next week. Well, my favorite 90s video game probably was Mortal Kombat 2. My favorite 90s video game. Like I loved playing that.
And the first one arguably still had the better intro theme.
All right. Well, next week.
Yeah, next week. So,
all right. See you next week.
If you guys haven't done so already, if you watched the show, if you're just watching the replay, and you want to check out more from the Culture Junkies, make sure you follow us over on our YouTube channel, over at youtube.com/Culture Junkies, and also like us on our Facebook channel as well, where you're watching the show right now as well. So you can catch up with me and all my friends like LGZ there on the screen, Fallen Marvel, Miao-Yin, and GQ, and the great Dadakuji, who I'm sure is probably turned himself into bed because it's kind of late.
No,
so
I'm
anyway.
still here, unfortunately.
Oh, he's still there. I mean, you ain't even said nothing. You was sitting there. You ain't chiming in on the big head or nothing, dude. Come on.
Man, very low energy.
Low energy. I could get some coffee in you. Oh no, that's right. Just go to bed. Anyway, we're gonna get out of here, guys. We hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Until then, I'm Kishiro. We'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.